Okay, hi, welcome back to number 2 in the series of reading contemporary poetry books. So far so good, and today it's early morning, just fed Augie, just had a double coffee because I'm gonna need it for this, Lurex by Denise Riley. Enter difficulty. Fasten your seatbelts, everyone. Okay, please supply a biographical note. This is the first poem of the book. The title, please supply a biographical note. A natal era, steadied by pamphlets and brilliance of the babies. In leaping joy alone. Why do some will themselves to stone? Now is the time for night to fall. So this is what it looks like. Okay. This is different territory. Let's get acclimated. Let's get the second poem. If you haven't clicked off already, thank you. This is, to me, kind of the best part of poetry. It's entering a linguistic world that is new to you. The trick is not to click off. So here's the second poem, What the Lyrics Said. I thought a song went like this. I should have known. The neighbors are kind, also loud, out in the hot gardens. How could I have known? Fuck, fuck, they warble. Okay. There's absolutely no doubt that I'm going to be coming back to these two poems again and again. You can't help it being human. We're all human. We're looking for meaning in language. I have faith in this book because I have faith in Denise Riley. She has, she's in her 70s. She's been writing poetry her whole life. She's a lauded poet, philosopher, teacher, a professor, feminist. I want to enter that world. I should also say, I have flipped through this book. Again, only human. I want to see, are there any poems that on just first glance will make sense? Yes, there are a lot. There's a lot of different kinds of poems. There's already some poems I can see are having an effect on me through their immediate meaning. I can see some biographical information that's rather harrowing from her childhood, which has actually really struck me. And unlike Duffy, she has notes, okay? That's really helpful because, for example, she has, she has one poem, for example, that's called Not Olga. That means absolutely nothing to me. Am I supposed to just think that it's someone I don't know who's Olga, or is it someone? Well, I go to the notes and here it says, Not Olga is drawn from one of Picasso's portraits of Marie-Thérèse Walter. Okay, so I figure, was Picasso's wife called Olga? I look quick, yeah, okay. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me. There's another poem she mentions that's titled, I haven't read it yet, but it's titled Alice a Fragment. In the notes it says, Alice a Fragment was written to celebrate Alice Notley's 75th birthday in 2020. Alice Notley is a huge American poet from the New York school. So, okay, let's do this. I'll be back soon. Okay. Hi, Eleanor, welcome back. The last you saw was probably me remembering at the last minute to vlog my my cappuccino at a cafe, new cafe I discovered, which was really fun. And I have to say a few more things about Lurex because it's progressing. It's now Tuesday night. I feel like I'm really, you know, there's in Aladdin, there's this song, you're playing with the big boys now. That's how I feel with Lurex. It's definitely taken it up a couple of notches. I'm even wondering if, you know, this sort of book, is it really only for academics or absolute poetry nerds? I decided no, I don't like that elitist view at all. And it's something that you know, I struggle with in my mind, often thinking, well, surely I need you know, a degree to read this, which is, you know, it's poetry, it's words, it really shouldn't be like that. And so what I did was I took a different approach with this one. I didn't really try too hard to keep to the order of the poems. I skipped around and stopped whenever. I mostly stopped at the shorter poems, the poems that seemed more inviting from the first couple of lines. And I have to say, there are some poems here that are very lyrical, very direct, very emotional. I should say also at the start, I'm having a problem with defining the word lyrical. I'm going to be using it in this case to describe something that's happening in a poem that is clearly about the person, the speaker in the poem, and there are emotions involved. Circled poems that I really enjoyed on a first to second reading. So here we're looking at a bit of a shorter book as compared to the Duffy book. So this is 57 pages with 44 poems. I circled 6 poems, including the title poem, Lurex, that immediately stood out to me and meant something to me. And I think that's really good, actually. That's really good if you can do that in a poetry book on first reading, because poetry books generally, you're going to have them on your shelf and go back to them again and again. As you grow, you see things. As you mature, as you change, I see different things in the poems. So I would already recommend this. Now, depends what you're in the mood for. Now, I know there's difficult material here, and you know, I appreciate that, but today I really was in the mood for something lyrical. And actually I got it in some ways. I think the one that stood out the most would have to be Burying the Brittle Book of Abandonment. Abandonment, wow. A brittle book of burying the brittle book of abandonment. It sums it up, doesn't it? I think Elena Ferrante wrote Days of Abandonment. That was, I think, the first book I read of hers. I think it was about a divorce. You know, let me flag something else as well. With Duffy, a lot of the time I was saying, oh, you know, Duffy's biography says this, Duffy's biography says that, she must be talking about her daughter who went away to university, blah, blah, blah. It does feel like Duffy's work is biographical in that way, but you have to, I think with Denise Riley, I think you have to really, don't jump to any conclusions is what I would say. Yeah, don't jump to any conclusions. So here she is. She starts this Burying the Brittle Book of Abandonment. You sodden pages. She's talking to the sodden pages. And she's telling them what to do. flop over the black waves to bring back that cold one to me, whose implacable tails turned rigid, to block its own sorrow, ossifies your hand-sewn spine. Book of salt tears, be beached to lie encrusted with mottled ivory limbs of hollowed crabs. Your grave burrowed out under sands inching around horned poppies, crumpled rock roses on dunes gripped hard by marram, narrowed to seal your binding as stilled your sounding. Just on the sound alone, enter Augie with his squeaky avocado toy. Okay, whatever. Just on sound alone, I love this poem. The fact is, to me, it's about heartbreak from a long time ago. It's exactly what I needed today, for no other reason that I kind of felt nostalgic, you know? So I thought to myself, Augie? Now he's trying to bury it. Let's see, no, Augie. No, that only works with that. Hi! That only works with the garden. Yeah. You okay? Yeah. Okay. Good boy. Steals the scene every time. What was I saying? Completely forgotten what I was saying. Yes. So I really love that image of the Book of Abandonment being told to bring back the cold one to her. And as it's happening, the tale of what happened, in my mind, the love affair, because why not? It's sort of ossifying everything on the beach, is sort of burying it and hardening it and sealing it until even the sounding of it is stilled. And the sounding to me is the poem. And I love the way it starts with "you sodden pages" and it ends with "as stilled your sounding." That play with sodden and sounding. I mean, this book would be worth it just for that one poem to me. I love it. I would even Xerox it. I would put it up on my bulletin board. I would put it in a book of favorite poems if, you know, I wanted to. Yeah, really unexpected to find that in this book. And the third poem, I would say, takes that lyrical kind of that lyrical tone from the previous poem we discussed about the Book of Abandonment, and it brings strangeness of language in, but I really like the way it mixes it. So this is the third poem. It's called Committed. Hang on, let me drink now. I should say this poetry book, it's been difficult actually, and I went out and got this tea. It's called the Quiet Mind. It's a herbal tea that's called the Quiet Mind. So let me have a sip of that before I continue with this poetry. I think you have to. Oh, that's my dishwasher telling me that it's finished. Everyone is singing today. I think it's important to keep your sense of humor well throughout life, but really important when you're reading poetry. The minute you take poetry too seriously, it's just losers. It's all its magic. Yeah, it's not a science, it's an art. Okay, so goes the tea for the Quiet Mind. Committed. Listen to how this starts. This is what I'm talking about, the really interesting, unexpected language. You're born with dead children in your body. Some reach daylight, others won't. Although even the walkers in sunshine go streaming to those short homes you hollowed out for them. Nippy from infancy, they'll dart ahead of you, narrowing, tinier, into their vanishing points. Whether they'd come to love its fleshiness or not, you did force life on dear future corpses. You, a sexton dug in between two worlds, or you, a metronome tracking their fluent feet, all of you in the dark as to what you'd started, they forgive you by, with luck, outliving you. So much going through my head. You're born with dead children. So who is you? We don't know. It could be me, the reader. It could be someone the speaker is pointing to. It could be many people. It could be one person. And the sex of the person is not, specified. Could be anyone. You're born with the dead children in your body is such a strong image. Now, the walkers in the sunshine streaming to their short homes, the darting, the narrowing, and the vanishing points, a lot of it has to me, connotations of reproduction, forcing life onto dear future corpses, not future corpses, but dear future corpses. It reminds me, there's a certain time, I think in many people's lives, well, at least I've experienced it, when let's say you haven't had children, or you're not sure you want to have children, or you've had a certain number of children, you've decided that's enough. Every once in a while, you wonder. Then she says, you, a sexton dug in between two worlds, or you, a metronome. So there's two options now given for the you. A sexton, which is a man, well, I don't know if it's particularly a man, a person who kind of looks after a church, I believe, if I understood correctly, sort of looks after the grounds and a graveyard, and a metronome, counting time, tracking their fluent feet. I can't help thinking that feet also refers to poetry, where you have, you count the beats of poetry as feet. And then they forgive you. So who forgives you? I think, the children, by brackets with luck, outliving you. Huh. So yeah, you see what I mean? It's just finding a couple of poems that get to you is wonderful. Which brings me to the poem, the title poem, Lurex. This is a different day, it's a different time, it's early afternoon, and I thought I'd better talk about Lurex. Now, the cover captures Lurex so beautifully, and as you can see, the end papers have this color, this burnished gold, which kind of lies underneath this dark, the dark metallic color and texture of Lurex with which Riley is playing in the poem. It's towards the end of the book, and I'm not going to read it out loud, but suffice to say that it is a rather spectacular poem. Okay, I lied. I'm going to read the first stanza. I can't describe it without at least reading the first stanza. It's got 5 stanzas. Each stanza has 3 lines, so it's in tercets. Hush, Jeremiah's flat as milk, we're not bubbling under the blood, and I myself in cramoisi. So excuse all my notes, but that's so what my notes say, and what I did feel and still feel, is that this really puts me off kilter from any number of reasons. First of all, you know, Jeremiah's, it's not the usual word, means lamentations, lists of woe. Okay, fine, I can look that up. Cramoisi, okay, I don't know any French, but it's a crimson cloth, possibly referring to blushing, but I'm not quite sure. Okay, fine, that doesn't really matter. But hush, Jeremiah. So she's telling her lamentations to just be quiet. Okay, flat as milk. That doesn't sound right to me. How can milk be flat? I never thought of milk as flat. We're not bubbling under the blood. How can milk possibly bubble under blood? I have no idea. And then, the last line, which is its own sentence, and I myself in Cramoisi. Why is she choosing? You know, a poet always chooses exactly the right word. A good poet doesn't use a word just because. So, and I myself. She doesn't need the myself. Why? In Cramoisi, why the French word for it? And why is she in red? Is it like the red letter? Is it something to do with, you know, blushing, with shame? So, you know, I don't know if there can be a more difficult, well, there can be more difficult beginnings to poems. I've read them. But this one is up there. And I would say that what started as being a huge impediment to me even wanting to read the rest of the poem is actually something of a spectacular turnaround. And this often happens with the more difficult poetry. So this will probably be repeated a few times as you perhaps, you know, try to read certain poems and certain books. That there's a certain respect and excitement you feel when you come across some type of language that's utterly new to you. And when you think about it, that really doesn't happen very much, if at all, in prose. You know, you're always thinking about the plot or the description, the narration, the character, but you're certainly not, you don't have the time or the inclination, and neither does the writer, to sit down and really analyze each word. You know, how does it sound? How does it look? What are the many meanings it could have? Poetry is the only type of literature, as far as I know, linguistic type of expression that actually can continually surprise you through the language itself. And I see this poem, and hopefully, you know, you'll go buy the book and enjoy it, and you know, think of me when you read the poem. Put a comment in my comment box about what you thought about it. She's taken Lurex, and that's such an interesting title. I mean, Lurex is the material it's got the glossiness of a kind of very superficial layer of metal. It's really synthetic. It's dark, but it glitters. It has this fantastic name, so it almost lures you. There's the X in it, so is it X marks the spot? Or maybe X is in something you don't want to do, negation, or maybe it's to do with the X and Y chromosome, because she talks about the difference between males and females in this poem, as far as I'm concerned. She has fathers who have certain questions, and she has this reference to children and reproducing through time and space. And as you can see, it's very hard for me to summarize this poem. I hope very much that you will read it and get a lot out of it. The poem comes after many different poems that have to do with her personal life, her life as an artist, her view of poetry as a craft and an art, her feelings about being a female in a mostly male environment, which poetry has been until recently, and also, you know, poems about society in general. So this poem, to me, seems to be bringing those issues together: the personal life, societal pressures, and poetry in one rather remarkable and elusive and elusive poem. When I started this series, though, I did say that I wanted to be perfectly honest about my experience with reading poetry. I don't want to gloss over the fact that there's about 4 poems from memory in this book that I still like. I just can't get my head around them at all. So it's not that I understand or even like all the poems in this book. I like the intellectual challenge, that's for sure. And I really like this book, but you know, I'm not going to gloss over the fact that there's just the stuff here that I just like truly don't get, and there's stuff here that I just don't like either. So I just want to make the point that when you read a book of poems, it's different to reading prose, because generally after you read prose, you could say, oh, you know, I give it 4 stars out of 5. I enjoyed it. However, this didn't work for me. I think with books of poems, it's different, because even though it is a book, it's one object, entity, whatever. Each poem, you know, I just don't think there are many, I don't know of any poets who've said, oh, you know, I've written this book, you know, from the beginning to end as a book. I think poets write poems at different times of their lives, different times of the day, on different occasions, with different things in mind. And eventually, you know, you have to sell a book, you have to get it out there, and so you put the poems together. So the intent is different. The intent of a poet is different from an author. And I think, therefore, the reviewing has to be different. And you have to prepare yourself and expect to have a variety of different poems in a book, and to have a variety of different experiences. And again, it's a different way of looking at how you read and how you then discuss what you read. At least that's what I'm learning. I'm learning as I go. Sometimes I'm horrified when I listen back to these videos and I hear that it's almost as if I'm trying to teach someone. I'm not a teacher. I have no training. I have I have a bachelor's degree in literature, but I studied almost no poetry. And that was, you know, I graduated many decades ago, and I'm not in that field at all. So I'm not here to really apologize when I sound like preachy in any way. I'm learning as I go, and if I do sound didactic, it's probably because I'm trying to convince myself of something. Okay, I just thought I'd bring that in. So I'll see you next time with number 3 in the series, which will be an American, a younger poet by the name of Nicole Seeley, who I'm very much looking forward to reading for the first time. Thank you very much. I'll see you then.